Bumblin Biden's humiliation knows no end, says now only 26% of voters want the U.S. to be involved in Ukraine. In this video, we're going to take a look at the astonishing collapse in support for Biden's Ukraine efforts. We're going to see how Democrats are now fast becoming the failed war party. And stick with me to the very end of this video when I'll reveal what's really going on with Russia, Ukraine, and indeed with the entire world. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Stevie with you. Great to be with you. As always, I am your daily fake news antidote, your PATRIOT professor, helping to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and insane and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Before we begin, gang, as many of you know, we did sell out our tickets for our upcoming rhino hunting virtual conference boot camp. For those of you who did register March 5th, it's going to be absolutely awesome. We're going to take an amazing deep dive into what we can all do to get rid of rhinos and elect tons of patriots all across the country. But Rhino Hunting Month continues on for the month of February. For those of you who missed tickets for my upcoming Rhino Hunting Boot Camp, you can still support the fight through our Change America initiative. So click on that link below or go to change.turleytalks.com to help fight rhinos and support patriots running for office with a daily roundup of your purchases to the nearest dollar. And as a thank you, if you sign up with our Change America program, you're going to get free access to my weekly exclusive Monday night live streams. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on that link below right now and support patriots while defeating rhinos all across the country. Click on the link or visit change.turleytalks.com and let's kick some serious butt in these upcoming midterms. It's going to be awesome. All right, gang, let's dive right in here as the drama continues to unfold in Ukraine. Bumblin Biden is just getting more and more humiliated on the world stage after weeks, and I do mean weeks, of calling on the reserve of Americans to prepare to respond to Vladimir Putin's imminent invasion of Ukraine. There's virtually no support for such a response whatsoever. In fact, there's virtually no support for Bumblin Biden and his disastrous handling of the situation with Russia and Ukraine. According to the latest poll from the AP and North Center of Public Affairs Research, just 26% of those surveyed wanted the United States to have a major role in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. 26%. You got to let that hit you. After months of trying to steal the resolve of the American population regarding a showdown with Russia, defending democracy, nearly 75% of the public does not want virtually anything to do with this conflict. This is an astonishing poll, and it indicates a major shift in sentiment among the American population. By comparison, for example, at the beginning of the Iraq War back in 2003, 72% of the American public supported it, gang. 72%. And before that, back in the late 90s, in a situation I would say it's more akin to what's going on here with Ukraine, 53% of voters supported the NATO-led war in what was then Yugoslavia. What we have to realize here is that there's not even a hint of such supportive sentiment today. Americans literally want nothing to do with any active or direct involvement with what's going on in Ukraine. But interestingly, the same poll found that it's now Democrats who are more supportive of direct involvement than Republicans. Again, let that hit you. The Democrats are now the war party. Talking about another major paradigm shift here. 32% of Democrats, as opposed to 22% of Republicans, wanted to get directly involved. 32% of Democrats want to get in the face of Vladimir Putin. So the Democratic Party is, at least in part, shifting to being the party of the rich, the party of the privileged globalists, and now increasingly the war party. The Democrat base are officially the new war pigs. I mean, it's a fascinating transition for sure. And it's resulting in some of the most bizarre discourse imaginable. Take, for example, the latest from Harvard law professor, and I'll repeat that again, Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe. He had the unmitigated goal to openly accuse Fox News' Tucker Carlson of treason for daring to even question the war establishment's propaganda surrounding Ukraine. Quote, led by Fox News Channel's Tucker Carlson, the GOP's Trump wing appears to be throwing its weight behind Putin. If Putin opts to wage war on our ally Ukraine, such aid and comfort to an enemy would appear to become treason as defined by Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. That's a Harvard law prof talking that way. He's actually saying that standing up to the propaganda that's being spewed out by war hawks in D.C. is nothing less than a crime entailing the death penalty. I mean, I think the important point here is that this kind of reckless rhetoric points to the fact that the D.C. discourse demanding that we all kowtow to the war pigs in both parties, it's not working. This is an incredibly significant development. You have the President of the United States. You have the neocons and neolibs in both political parties absolutely united. You have a unison propaganda drone coming 24/7 from the mainstream media, all pushing for major U.S. involvement in the Ukraine. And the best they can muster is 26% support. So no wonder they've been reduced to accusing members of the media of treason. As for Biden himself, his polls continue to plummet. Gallup has Biden's foreign policy approval at a disastrous 40%. Now, this is paralleling the latest round of Emerson polling that found that just 36% of voters approved of how Biden was handling the Ukraine crisis. Again, another devastating blow. Very, very dire blow, as the Daily Mail calls it, to the current state of Biden's presidency. And more than all of that, what does China think in all of this? We know how Biden and NATO are reacting to Russia, but apparently Russia doesn't really care. And to figure that out, we need to see what China's saying in all of this. Well, Bloomberg is reporting that China has come out and denounced the economic sanctions being placed on Russia as, quote, immoral. In fact, the foreign ministry spokesperson went a step further, accusing the United States of being the real, quote, culprit in this crisis. The Chinese spokesperson criticized the U.S. and NATO for placing offensive weapons near Russia, asking whether, quote, they ever thought about the consequences of cornering a major power. The Chinese spokesperson went on to call the U.S. the real culprit of the Ukraine situation, saying that the U.S. was, quote, adding oil to a burning house while pointing fingers at others trying to put out the fire. Astonishing. And again, the humiliation for Biden doesn't end there. Just the other night, the Prime Minister of Pakistan made an official visit to Moscow, and he was given red carpet treatment. This is a nation of over 220 million people who have become very close with Russia of late. And the nation of Azerbaijan just this week ratified a new alliance with Russia. And of course, Russia and China have just forged what they're calling a, quote, limitless alliance that will effectively shield Russia from any and all sanctions imposed by the West. What's going on here? It seems like we've seen this before, haven't we? We've seen the shifting of the political order just months back. Remember last August, a number of nations, including Britain, were turning to Russia and China for what they called their, quote, moderating influence over the Taliban after Bumblin Biden botched the whole troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. What's happening here is not treason. It's not pro-Russian propaganda. It's not right-wing talking points. It's precisely what we talked about in our last video. What's happening here is something that scholars such as Harvard scholar Samuel Huntington referred to as a clash of civilizations playing out right before our very eyes. A clash between globalism versus nationalism, technocrats versus traditionalists, a rootless permanent political class versus a people rooted in history, custom, and culture. And what Huntington noticed, and this is going back into the early 1990s, is that the Cold War era that defined geopolitics for at least 2 generations was over. And a new politics was emerging, which was fast replacing the modern world with a postmodern world where more and more populations were returning to their own cultures, customs, and traditions. They were going back to things like religion and race and ethnicity and region and the basis for a new postmodern social order. So more and more populations are breaking away from globalist empires and monarchist technocrats and the permanent political class, and they're returning to the customs and traditions that have defined their identities for generations. I believe this is exactly what we're seeing playing out right before our very eyes. And if that's what's happening, then the old neoliberal discourse that appeals to human rights and equality and equity and defending democracy, it's increasingly falling on deaf ears. The discourse of our permanent political class no longer resonates with more and more populations. And so it's no surprise that more and more of the world is turning back to their traditions, their cultures, and their customs. It's no surprise that more and more nations are turning away from neoliberal regimes of the globalist West. And it's no surprise that populations within the West are no longer listening to the neoliberal banter of our globalist regimes. That, in a nutshell, is what's unfolding right before our very eyes. A new world is rising, and it's a world that will, without a doubt, leave the likes of Bumblin Biden very far behind. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on RINO Republicans, right? RINOs, Republicans in name only, are getting absolutely crushed as Liz Cheney gets another humiliation. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.